In this video, we're going to be looking at the sexual characteristics that are mediated by estrogen as it acts in the female body as the primary sex hormone. Now, just like the analog in males, testosterone, estrogen causes a number of very noticeable physical changes in the female body, especially around puberty, and is also responsible for mediating a number of psychological effects tied to female behavior, which is the first topic of this video. Now, I'm going to give the same disclaimer that was given in the male portion of these videos, and that is, even though estrogen is responsible for mediating a number of behaviors in females, females are no more or less slaves to their biology and hormone imbalances than males are to their testosterone levels. All of us are thinking and moderating creatures that do have the ability to override our hormonal levels, and we are not slaves to our biology. Now, on that note, the first topic that we're going to discuss is the idea of female libido, and estrogen, just like testosterone in men, is responsible for regulating female libido, but estrogen by itself in high concentrations actually decreases female sexual desire and sexual arousal. Estrogen, only when it is in the presence of testosterone, actually increases libido. Now, this should be weird to ask because what is testosterone doing in female bodies? I thought this was specifically a male reproductive hormone. Well, as we can see from the chemical structures here, all that we need to do in order to make estrogen is take testosterone right here, add an oxygen to this double bonded O here, move this bond over here in order to create a benzene ring and break off this methyl group, and bam, we have estrogen. So the fact that females have both hormones, both estrogen and testosterone within them, shouldn't be surprising at all, because testosterone is actually a reactant that is necessary in order to create estrogen, and both hormones exist in both of the sexes and actually cause some of the same physical effects in both males and females. However, one aspect of female behavior mediated by estrogen is entirely unique to females, as it is tied to the increasing and decreasing estrogen levels that result during the menstrual cycle. So this effect is actually caused by estrogen withdrawal when the concentration of estrogen drops, and there are two key times when this happens. The first of which is during the negative feedback cycle, where the corpus luteum is degrading and right before menstruation is about to happen, which is why we call this the premenstrual estrogen withdrawal. If you've ever heard of the term PMS, referring to premenstrual syndrome, this is what people are referring to. Now, the other time when estrogen concentrations decrease sharply is right after birth, in which case this is what we call postpartum, or after birth estrogen withdrawal. And both of these periods are characterized by a temporary bout of depression, again linked to a significant decrease in estrogen concentrations throughout the female body. And there are a number of non-emotional effects that often accompany these, particularly leading up to and during the period where many women experience menstrual cramps, although this is largely unrelated to the estrogen withdrawal and is more a symptom of the actual process of the degrading of the endometrium. Moving on from behavior, we can take a look at the primary and secondary sexual characteristics in females, the primary, of course, being directly related to increasing reproductive capability, and secondary being the ones that increase certain sexually related features to women that are not directly tied to reproduction. Now, the first and most obvious of the primary sexual characteristics is the maturation of the uterus and the ovaries, because they are the two organs that are necessary in order for a female to be able to give birth. Now, when talking about the ovaries, the primary feature that the ovaries can now do is the process of ovulation, because if the ovaries can't release any eggs, there's no chance of a birth ever happening. Now, regarding the uterus, we of course need to talk specifically about the endometrium, which can now grow and menstruate in the process of the uterine cycle in order to get the uterus ready in order to accommodate a potential fetus. And of course, because of the necessity of intercourse to cause fertilization, the walls of the vagina, specifically the muscular layers in the vagina, thicken and grow stronger in order to accommodate the entry of the penis during intercourse, as well as to make the vagina stronger, which is a necessity, as we'll see in childbirth in the next video. However, even though these are the characteristics that are most necessary for the process of fertilization and birth giving, they are not necessarily the most obvious physical changes that are seen in the female body. Now, one key distinction between males and females is generally a higher body fat content in females, of course, because fat is a form of long-term energy storage, and it should be obvious why females would need a larger supply of long-term energy, given that they need to supply energy not just for themselves, but also for a fetus that is growing inside of the uterus. Probably the most obvious, or at least distinctive feature of females in sexual maturation is the enlargement of the breasts, and this is tied to the breast's ability to lactate, which is the process of producing and releasing milk, which of course is how females feed a newborn baby. Now, naturally, the process of birth is very, very important for females, so having wider hips with stronger muscles within the hip area as well as within the uterus, obviously, are both necessary in order to accommodate the process of giving birth. Just like males, females often find hair growing in places where it wasn't before, specifically around the genital area, because hair acts as a physical barrier to stop any pathogens from getting up the vagina into the uterus and potentially infecting the child. Finally, the last characteristic is the enlargement of the areas around the vagina, that being the labia and the clitoris, which are the sexually stimulative organs, which is very important in terms of the fact that these are both the pleasure sensors that are stimulated during sexual intercourse. In the final video in our series on the female reproductive system unit, we're going to talk about a final regulatory hormone that is used specifically in terms of mediating birth, but has many long-lasting emotional effects that are important after birth has taken place.